and welcome to my review of The Light Fantastic, the second Discworld novel, and oh, I like it. Obviously, I'm a huge Pratchett fan. So the first book was The Color of Magic, which had a very different format from most traditional classic Discworld novels. The Light Fantastic is the first book to go into that classic. In case you don't know, the Color of Magic is basically a combination of 3 stories into one. I feel like there's a Tolkien-shaped joke to be put here. Anyway, so Light Fantastic has a format that I'm very fond of. Maybe because, well, maybe, it's because of the Discworld novel. It isn't split up into chapters or anything like that. It is a continuous sequence of scenes. Just continuous. At most, like if a scene ends at the end of a page, there will be 3 stars. Otherwise, you just get a space. So that was one of the first things that made the Discworld stand out for me, not just because of the material, but the formatting or the presentation of it. It does make it really easy to just continue reading. This is bad when you have a school night the day after, but listen, when you want people to continue reading, you may want to go for the continuous scene format. So this book is originally published in 1986, when I was 2 years old, which is always kind of weird thinking about that. So again, this is kind of a send-off, or like don't want to say it's sarcastic, like it's not quite a parody, but it kind of is, but it's still a serious story, but it's full of humor. But it is kind of a send-off to the high fantasy of, I do believe, the 70s and 80s, where the female characters basically wore less armor than like lingerie, basically. Same with the traditional heroes. Like the fact that this is supposed to be Rincewind, it just continues to baffles me. The one thing that I do like about this cover, however, is little Two-Flower with his 4 eyes. Ah, so cute. I wrote an interview with Terry Pratchett, or an excerpt from an interview years and years ago, about the cover art, and he said that he did realize that the artist kind of misunderstood what he said, what he meant, and so made Two-Flower have literal 4 eyes. What Terry Pratchett actually meant was that Two-Flower has glasses, which for the longest time the people with glasses have been called 4 eyes, and that's what Pratchett meant. But the artist wonderfully misunderstood, which is why we have this gorgeous cover art of Two-Flower with literally 4 eyes. This is basically a duology with the first Discworld book, The Color of Magic, and that book ended on a cliffhanger, where our heroes are literally have fallen off the edge of the world. Now, I really hope this isn't your first time tuning in, because the Discworld, in case you don't know, it is a flat world carried on the back of 4 giant elephants, who themselves stand on the shelf of a humongous world turtle called Great Atune. Great Atune is going somewhere. That is basically my main plot of the story. So how do you begin a story where the previous one ended with your characters literally falling out of the world? I mean, this is 285 pages of story. How do you fix that? With magic. And, you know, foreshadowing, because we know from the first book that Rincewind has one of the 8 great spells of creation within his mind. And those 8 great spells are kinda tantamount to the existence of the Discworld. So the other 7 great spells rearrange reality in order to bring Rincewind back on the world. Now, side note, they do bring Rincewind back, but for some reason they bring Two-Flower. Not Tethys, like the Color Magic is the one and the only time that we meet the sea troll Tethys, but for some reason the spells bring back Two-Flower, which surprisingly nice of them, honestly. So Rincewind and Two Flower find themselves in the forest of Skund, which is basically the epicenter of fairy tales on Discworld. Like, it has talking trees, it has gnomes living within mushrooms, and it has a cottage. That epic cottage made out of gingerbread that is restored and maintained by magic. So the thing is, though, obviously the Wizards of Unseen University have noticed that something is happening with the Octavo. The Octavo is the book of the creator, the creature that created the Discworld, and the general consensus has been that the creator forgot the Octavo when he left after have completed his work. Maybe not so, which we definitely realize at the end of this book. There probably was a reason why the Octavo was left behind. So the Wizards do realize that something is up when the Octavo goes and rearranges reality. The magic released by the Octavo has some backlash that rises like a tide pool throughout the university and changes things. Cobblestones become something squishy, the cooking range becomes something that the poor cook currently working with it suffers permanent PTSD from and can only talk about the knuckles. And I guess we can say that this book is the birth of the librarian as we know and love him. In his case, though, it is probably rebirth. I mean, the poor man got changed into an orangutan at the beginning of this book, and he basically remains rather sad, understandably. I mean, I would be pretty sad if I suddenly found myself in a completely different body from how I woke up that morning, but... So the current Art and Cello of Unseen University is called Elder Weatherbacks. And yes, he is later confirmed to be a cousin of the most epic of Weatherwaxes on the Discworld, and the one Weatherwax that I believe that everyone knows, and if not love, then at least appreciate. The one and only Granny Weatherwax. I love her. The current Angela is a Weatherwax, and the current second in command is called Trimon, who is a bit of a foil to Rincewind. So Rincewind is a failure of a wizard. He can't do magic. He blames it on this great spell within his mind, but the man has no talent in magic, and I mean, he would do much better in our reality. He has the heart and soul of a scientist, while in the body of a person living on the Discworld, and the Discworld is not logical. Trimon is a bit of a foil to Rincewind, I feel, because he does have talent for magic, but he doesn't really use it. In this book, the wizards kinda use magic willy-nilly, like they just fire spells hither and here and do whatever they want with it. They do much less of it in later books, and probably because of the events of this book. So Trimon is more of bit more of a bureaucrat than the wizards are comfortable with, and he does follow the age-old tradition of wizards. So wizards live long lives, and the only way for younger wizards to make any upward movements through the orders and all that stuff is filling the boots of older wizards when they pass away, and it's accepted and kind of expected that younger wizards will make sure that those boots are empty first, if you catch my drift. And Trimon does his best throughout the story to empty the boots of Articello Velovax. But yeah, the wizards do realize that, you know, with the Octavo acting up, something is probably happening, and they do realize that Rincewind was falling off the edge of the world, and that something is appearing up ahead, which is the kind of terrifying giant red star that Great Atune is headed directly towards. And the realization is that they have about 2 months before the world potentially ends. And in order to stop the world from ending, they need the great spells of the Octavo. However, one of those great 8 spells is within the head of Rincewind, who is currently doing his best not to talk to trees. So yeah, Rincewind is doing his best not to talk to trees, even though they keep trying to talk to him, and he accidentally inspires the creation of a religion within the tree world, as you do. So I did mention that Skund is like the epicenter of fairy tales on the Discworld. So the main difference between Twoflower and Rincewind is brought further into perspective here. Twoflower is idealistic, naive, and firmly believes that all fairy tales and creatures of fairy tales are just nice and sweet and pretty and kind and nice. Rincewind, however, is a realist. He has both his feet firmly planted on the Discworld, admittedly, but at least it's on firm ground. And he knows that fairy tale creatures aren't nice. They have no reason to be nice. They have every reason, at least like with gnomes. Gnomes have every reason not to be sweet, cuddly little things. They have every reason to be a little bit mean because their lives are a little bit... They are in constant danger of becoming a sad little squeak. There's also the idea of elves. Twoflower believes that elves are kind and nice and beautiful and all that fancy ideals. Rincewind, however, knows that elves are cruel and mean and maybe not evil, but they are not nice. It's also in the Forest of Skund that they become aware that Rincewind is being hunted down by other wizards. They do manage to escape, because otherwise we would not have 285 pages of fancy story. It's on page 47 that we actually meet Cohen the Barbarian, who is very obviously a send-off of Conan the Barbarian. Kind of like Ron the Barbarian from The Color of Magic. There's a lot of barbarians on Discworld. But Cohen is the original. Like, he is the legend. He is the hero. Or as he likes to say, he is a lifetime in his own legend, because he is currently 87 years old with all the problems that old age entails. So upon escaping the Forest of Skund, Rincewind and Twoflower meet the druid Belfon. And accidentally, because they were falling out of the sky, and he happened to be flying his giant rock at the right time, he makes the rock fly by believing that it can. He is using the power of persuasion, which works on Discworld. Rincewind, however, is so horrible and terrible at imagination and magic that he would probably make the rock drop if he thought too much about it. So Druids on the Discworld are kind of like the IT department. They are the computer specialists, and stone circles on the Discworld basically work like computers. And that's an idea that I absolutely love about the Discworld, about this. It's like, yes. They do also fill the rather by now stereotypical role of druids, but because we know that the myth of druids performing human sacrifices is probably... I mean, knowing the Romans probably simply a smear campaign, like, they maintained a lot of things about a lot of people and not exactly the most reliable narrators. But so Belfon is delivering this giant rock to a stone circle. I think in Ramtops, I'm not sure. Can't remember. Can't be able to look it up. But basically, he's delivering a fresh stone to a computer that isn't quite working. And in order to test the new configuration, the druids decide to perform a moon ceremony. And following the stereotype, that means a virgin sacrifice. Because this is Discworld, the virgin sacrifice was rather looking forward to meeting the moon goddess and having tea and scones with her. Because... But also because this is a Discworld and we did meet Cohen the Barbarian on page 47, we do follow the hero tropes, and Cohen, trusts by to save the virgins, slay the priests, and loot the treasures and run away. However, he is 87 years old, so it falls on Bethan, the 17-year-old, supposed to be virgin sacrifice, like she is a virgin but not sacrifice. It falls on her to literally pick Cohen up, throw him over her shoulder, and she and Rincewind run away with Cohen and Twoflower, as you do. So, unfortunately, Twoflower was hit by a poisonous sickle by, I think they had Druid, which means that his body is alive, but his soul is in Death's domain. So that's where Rincewind actually has to go, which understandably Rincewind isn't too much in favor of, because he's been escaping death so many times that death definitely knows his face. So Rincewind enters Death's domain. He does find Twoflower, because otherwise we would be less than halfway through the book and that'd be a weird place to end. He does meet Death's adopted daughter, Isabel, and he does find Twoflower being Twoflower. So Twoflower is teaching Death, War, Pestilence, and Famine how to play the card game Damn. As you do! But again, so remember from the first book, The Color of Magic, how Death wasn't quite the character that we all know and love. This is where he comes into his own. This is where Death becomes his own character, with his personality and habits and interests and just view on life. He is much more humane. He's much more Discworld Death, as we know and love. This is also around this time that, a little bit before, that we are introduced to the side character Helena the Hannah-haired Harridan, who I am absolutely certain is a play of, or XP, of some famous, probably red-haired heroine, the name that starts with an R, probably from Cohen the Barbarian, like something red. I feel like I heard about this character throughout the years. I cannot remember, and I can't be bothered to look it up. Like, it's probably an old famous character, and meh. So Helena is basically a scent of the stereotypes of fancy heroines, with the the itsy bitsy chainmail and bouncy perky things. She, however, she wears sensible clothes with sensible boots and goes and does her job. She is the hero hired by Trimon, who is logical. Now let's just be honest, he is a very logical character. The other wizards have been trying to locate Rincewind using magic, but because of the red star, magic is failing. Trimon is the only one who thinks, you know what, magic is failing, therefore I'm gonna use experts to go find this guy. He is a little bit uncomfortably smart sometimes. Yeah. So, you know what, let's just speed a little bit further. Like, I know there are spoilers here. Like, I am spoiling the book, but I'm trying not to spoil too much. Let's just say that Rincewind goes from trying not to talk to trees to actually talking to rocks, because the rocks turn out to be trolls. Twoflower introduces Cohen, who, by the way, is 87 years old. He introduces Cohen to dentistry, which goes down a lot better than when he introduced the concept of fire insurance to the inhabitants of Ankh-Morpork. At least this time, nothing ends up burning. They do end up back in Ankh-Morpork, because all roads lead to Ankh-Morpork. But anyway, there is a very, very interesting sequence of scenes or events, including trolls. And I mean, trolls on Discworld are such an interesting concept, because on the Discworld they are a silicon-based life form. They are literally made out of rocks. They are living rock. And it's their philosophy that I've always found the most interesting. So, their philosophy on time. And they basically say that we can see the past, therefore we must be facing the past. We cannot see the future, therefore the future must be behind us. Therefore we must be traveling backwards through time. And because of this philosophy is one of the main reasons I just absolutely adore the trolls, because when the first time I read it, I just stopped, stared at the wall for a while and thought, that makes sense. So the trolls actually also have a prophecy about Rincewind, and that they should help him, which is why they do. There is a sequence where Helena and her hired mercenaries have captured Two Flower, Cohen, and Bethan, and Rincewind has to go team up with the trolls to go save them. Made all the more interesting because the mercenaries and their captives have camped out in a cave, which unfortunately happens to be the mouth of Old Granddad, who is the oldest and meanest old troll in the entire area. And honestly, I would be mean too if I woke up for a long nap and realized that someone had lit a fire on my tongue. I would be pissed. So shenanigans ensue, and our characters are getting closer and closer to civilization. The thing is, though, at the same time, the Discworld is getting closer to the Red Star, and the disk is getting warmer. And what is happening is that Great Attune is swimming into the shallows of reality. Not quite to the Red Star, but to something that is next to it. Because Great Attune is now in the shallows of reality, and Discworld can only exist outside of reality in the deepest regions of space. That means that the Discworld is at risk of collapsing and being destroyed, because it can only exist with magic, and magic cannot exist in reality. But Great Attune has a reason for going for the shallows. Turtle, shallows, waiting for something. You know where this is going. And I absolutely adore this. So, but also because the world is technically going to end, people are panicking. And when people panic, that's the perfect breeding grounds for cults. And that's what ends up happening. There's a cult that forms. The cult of the Red Star. The cultists, they are called the Star People, and they have red stars painted on their foreheads. I should have painted a star on my forehead, I just realized that. Oh well. And these cultists basically believe that it's because of magic that the world is ending, and if they just kill all magic users, kill all wizards, and burn all the magic books and magical paraphernalia, that will mean that they will be purged of sin and the world won't end. Won't work, but you know how cults work, they always try and find someone to blame for their misfortunes instead of just dealing with things. I mean, I can understand why people would be panicking about the world ending, but it's not because of magic. It's because of the lack of magic. And it's because of reproduction. They do need to get the 8th grade spell back to Ankh-Morpork, where the Octavo is. So what has happened in the meantime is Primon, the second in hand, has managed to not quite kill the Arcangelo. Luckets managed to do that. I have not mentioned Luckets, but Luckets has played this part here. And Trimon has taken over basically the leader position. And he has also stolen the Octavo, pressured the other heads of the magical orders, and by now has proceeded to the top of the Tower of Art, which is the oldest building or construction on this world, where he has recited the 7 great spells. He is a mortal human being with a mortal human frail mind. Saying those 7 great spells has broken his mind, and something has entered his mind and taken over. So here's the thing. Magic makes reality a little thin. And there's this thing called the dungeon dimensions that exists between realities. It's a space or place, and those, you know, the dungeon dimensions, and there are things that exist within the dungeon dimensions that are kind of Lovecraftian existentialistic horrors, and those things are constantly trying to break through, and magic makes the world a little bit thinner. So what we have here is a mortal human being standing on top of the Tower of Art, reciting the 7 greatest spells on the Discworld, at a point where reality is thin. So something got through and into his head and has taken over. So not only does Rincewind have to fight a thing from a dungeon dimensions, he has to reunite the 7 spell, or the 8 spells, and then recite them and save the world. Shenanigans. Obviously, since this is the second book of... how many are there again? Like 40 or 42? Obviously he manages to save the world. That's basically it. I said what this was all about reproduction. Great Atune is a she is a mother, and she went to the Shallows to come pick up her 8 babies and escort them in deeper into space with their own little calf world cows and little newly formed worlds. Mommy went to pick up her babies. So yeah, that's the Light Fantastic. Light Fantastic is the light that you get to when you go through light and through shadows and to the other end. It is the light of magic. It is also the color of magic, which is apparently a disappointing purple. So last few pages is a little bit of roundup. The 17-year-old Bethan, who has been my favorite character in this novel, is determined to marry Cohen, the 87-year-old world-renowned hero. There's a 70 years age difference. I'm a little creeped out, but... And then there's the departure of Two Flower, who has decided that he now wants to go home, stop being a tourist, because as he says, the point of traveling is to come home and remember and tell other people about it. So Two Flower does appear again in one other Discworld novel called Interesting Times, which we will get to. So this is kind of the birth of 2 epic duos, because Two Flower gives lockets to Rincewind. So now we have the epic pair of Rincewind and Lockets, which they will be going through quite some adventures. There's also the epic duo of Rincewind and the Librarian, as soon as the Librarian grows into his own, because he's been a bit of a sad little orangutan throughout this. But yeah. So yeah, I've spoken myself a little bit hoarse now. Probably not best to do this when you still have a cold, is it? So this has been the second Discworld novel. I am really happy that I've continued to reading. Upon reading, I realized that there's more curse words than I ever thought. That, like, I didn't realize that there were curse words in this book. I read this first 20 years ago. I reread it a few years ago. I'm like, what? So the next book will be Equal Rights, the third Discworld novel. A bit of a feminist takedown of fancy stereotype and fancy tropes. Thank you for watching, and we will see you later. Bless bless.